The reason why your car photos do not look professional has absolutely nothing to do with your camera choice. Believe me when I say this, for the first 6 years of my car photography career, I have shot on a $600 DSLR camera by Nikon with a 35mm f1.8 lens. Now this is a cheap APS-C camera that I used for the longest time. And then eventually I upgraded to my current setup, which is the Sony a7 IV with the 24 to 70mm f2.8 lens. But for the first 6 years when I was using that $600 camera, I went from having absolutely no skill to the point where I had people asking me if the photos I took were in magazines or if they were professionally printed and sold. And it wasn't because they were trying to just gas me up, or maybe they were, but it's because over that 6 years, I was starting to develop an eye for photography. And then from there, when I upgraded my camera, it developed even further. But throughout the entire time that I was using either camera, I wasn't constantly looking to upgrade my body or my lens to the newest and greatest piece of gear. I was looking to upgrade how I made decisions in the field. What I started thinking about actually evolved, and how I approached every situation changed drastically. And today I'm going to show you the framework that worked for me that has changed everything. And if you need any sort of proof as to why this stuff that I'm going to talk about today is useful, I grew my audience from 390 people to over 150,000 across all social media platforms in less than 1 year, simply by sharing my work online. So I'm going to start off by diagnosing the issue that is at hand. Every time somebody decides to pick up a camera to start car photography, they think that they're going to know what they're doing right off the gate. Believe me, I thought the same thing when I started. But then they start noticing that their images are pretty flat and boring, and they look amateur rather than professional. So they think that simply adjusting their settings like their ISO, the shutter speed, or their aperture is what's missing. But in reality, that is not what is the problem. And there's this big gap between an amateur and a professional photographer, and that gap has absolutely nothing to do with the gear that you're using. Now, gear does matter to an extent, but that's only a portion of what makes a professional photographer. That's probably about 5% of it, honestly, if I were to put a number to it. But the other 95% is actually the decision-making that photographers go through in order to get the shot that they're looking for. And now these decisions are made long before you ever press the shutter button on your camera. And I figured this out the hard way. To be honest with you, I was just taking random pictures of my car personally because that's the only car I had access to. And I would go out to Cars and Coffees and take pictures of other people's cars. But every single time I would come back and I would look at the photos, I wasn't too fond of how they looked. And this is after years of trial and error and looking at what other people were doing, admiring what they were doing, and attempting to reverse engineer so I can get a similar editing style, similar look, similar angle, everything like that. So I'm going to teach all of that stuff to you in this video right now to hopefully shorten that learning curve that you're potentially experiencing at the moment. And I have found that there are 4 separate levers that you control and you can pull at any given time in order to make your photos look more professional and less amateur. The first lever we're going to be talking about is light, and this is probably the biggest lever that you have in your arsenal. And I'm not necessarily talking about studio lighting. I'm mostly talking about outdoor lighting, like the sun or any light sources that you may have if you're shooting at nighttime. And what I'm more concerned about is the relative location of the car to the light. Is the light behind the car? Is it in front of the car? Is it on the side of the car? Where is the light coming from, and how is it hitting the car itself? And the relation of the light to the car is going to control literally everything about it, from its shadows to its highlights. And it's very important that you position the car to the light source accordingly in order to get the kind of look that you're looking for. And I'll cover a couple different options that you have, but also go through why one option may be better than the other. This example right here is an example of front lighting, which in my personal opinion is the most flat looking lighting that you can have. This is where all of your stuff is going to look washed out, it's going to look chalky, etc. You do have a body line that you can see on the photo, but it's not as defined, versus this other photo, which is more of a side light or a backlight. This is going to give you a lot more depth to the image. And again, this is the same exact light source, but the position of the car is different. And all the editing, all the settings are the exact same in both of these photos. So the position that you have with the light source in relation to the car is going to be important, and it's going to make or break the image overall. The second lever that we're going to pull is going to be reflections. Cars are giant mirrors on wheels, and every angle that you look at a car, you're going to get some sort of reflection. Now, reflections are something that you can't completely remove because it's going to look generated, it's going to look fake. So all we can do really is control what is being reflected and how much of it is being reflected. There are two simple ways that you can do this. The first of which is simply moving your feet. The second is going to be changing the height of your camera. When you look at a car and you see all these reflections on the panels, if you shift one way or the other just a couple feet, or change the height of which your camera is shooting from just by a couple feet, you're gonna notice that the reflections either reduce or change. I like to prioritize removing reflections from the biggest panels. So that's normally gonna be the hood of the car or the windshield. Those are probably gonna be the two biggest pain points for me personally when it comes to reflections. But that is also dependent on what kind of shot you're going for. If I'm doing a 3/4 angle shot of a car, I'm definitely going to prioritize getting rid of those reflections. But if I am shooting the side of the car, I'm going to try controlling the reflections on the door panels. And those two decisions that you make are without any gear upgrades at all. If you want to further reduce the amount of reflections you have or control them even better to make it look more intentional and more professional, then you would pair it with a CPL filter or a polarizer filter, if you don't know what that means. The polarizer filter is not going to completely eliminate all the glare and reflections on your car, but for the reflections that you do have left over, it's going to help clean those up, make it look like a gradient is on the car itself. It just looks a lot more professional and a lot more polished. You are still going to have reflections on the car no matter what, but the more that you reduce them, the better. And then sometimes the reflections on the car actually play into the overall image, depending on the environment that you're in. Now, there is more decision making when it comes to reflections and stuff like light. In a course I have created, I will leave a link to it down in the description below if you want to check it out for yourself. But I do talk a little bit more intensively on each of these subjects, and I have step-by-step guides on how to make these changes. I have homework for you to do in order to go out and test these in the real world and also grade yourself on how you think you did. This is a course that is going to not only teach you the fundamentals that I'm teaching here more in depth, but it's going to give you accountability and a way to self-grade yourself to make sure that you're actually applying what you're learning in the field and you're getting the kind of results that you want. So again, go check it out. I'll leave it in the description down below and we'll get right back into it. Lever number 3 is your background. Nothing kills a photo faster than a super messy background. This seems like something that might be obvious to a lot of people, but some people don't even really think about the background. Everything that is behind the car while you're shooting it is either going to support the car itself in the overall image, or it's going to detract from it. And we want that first option because we want to make sure that the environment plays its own role whenever we are calling on it to. And probably one of the quickest killers to your background is stuff growing out of the top of your car. And what I mean by that is stuff like street lights, street poles, signs, and even people. And so your background can be very distracting, and probably one of the number one things I see people forget about in the background is going to be traffic cones and signs. These are going to be detracting from the car itself, especially if it's a bright colored object that you don't want to have in the photo. And although yes, you can remove it in post-processing, sometimes simply moving a couple feet to either side or repositioning the car is more than enough to eliminate the stuff in the background that is distracting. The fourth lever is perspective. This is going to relate to your camera height and even your focal length, but it's also going to play into your angles. If you're somebody who goes out to the parking lot and you pull out your phone and you open up your camera app, take a picture and walk away, that is a general perspective that everybody has. It's gonna look very flat, very boring, and if you're using a wide angle lens, it's gonna make the car look distorted. But what if you took an extra 10 seconds to step back, crouch down a little bit closer to the ground and not use an ultra wide lens? Are you gonna have a more intentionally looking shot and that looks a lot more aggressive, a lot more professional versus some random passerby that just simply took out their phone and took a picture of a car? People don't quite understand how much changing the height can change the look of the car itself. And I have 3 different examples I'll pop up on screen of the exact same angle of the same car, but at 3 different heights. And as you look through these, you're gonna notice that the one where I'm standing eye level versus the one that's at headlight level, and even one that's closer to the ground, it's gonna look vastly different, and some of them might actually look better than the others. And there's a whole decision framework behind getting the perspective of the car. So the next time you see a picture of a car that you admire, think about, where is the camera located? How high is it? How far away is it? What's the focal length of the image? Just take a guess at what it is and start thinking about those things, because those photos that you admire, you can replicate it yourself in the field. So light, reflections, background, and perspective. Those are the 4 things that we have control over in every one of our photo shoots that has absolutely nothing to do with gear. So naming them is one thing, but having control over them is a completely different thing. So what I just showed you is to simply make you aware of the actual issues at play and what levers you have to control them. So now you know what to look for. But the skill itself, the decision-making framework behind it, understanding all 4 levers and when to pull them, how to prioritize them one over the other, making sure they don't conflict with one another, that takes time and practice. And that's exactly why I built the course that I mentioned earlier. And that course is called the Car Photography Fundamentals course. This course, I will teach you more in depth on each one of these levers. I will give you homework to essentially go out and practice all the decision framework yourself, what levers to pull, how to prioritize them, what you actually need to do to put this stuff into practice, so that way you have actionable steps to go out and try the thing that I'm talking about. Not only that, you have your own self-grading rubric where you can grade yourself based on the criteria that I give you in each of the 12 lessons on that course. This way you have yourself as an accountability partner, and you're actually forcing yourself to go out and learn things and even try new things, because each lesson does come with experimental stuff for you to try out, probably for the first time. Now, this is something that helped me a lot over the years as a car photographer. I would see somebody do something online on YouTube or on Instagram, and I would go out and try to replicate it myself. But I had to completely reverse engineer every single decision-making skill that that person made. I had to overanalyze the photo and be like, okay, what was that angle? What was the height? What was their decision behind it? And try and go out and replicate it without any sort of guidance. But I want to change that for you, because I want to give you the decision-making skills that I have learned over the years, why I do what I do, because that's honestly how I built my audience on social media. Is I simply showed people what I was doing and why I was doing it. I designed it in a way that I wish somebody taught me when it came to car photography, because I didn't go to school for this. I didn't study how to be a professional photographer, and I just simply learned all on my own. So this is something that probably would have helped me greatly almost 9 years ago when I picked up my camera for the first time. If you're serious about leveling up your decision-making skills and making your photos look more professional rather than amateur, I highly recommend checking out the link in the description down below. And if you're not ready for that or interested in that right now, I completely understand. The 4 levers that I covered in this video is really all you need in order to get started on your next photo shoot. Simply being aware and taking notice of these issues is more than enough to make you a more aware professional photographer. And that's my goal. I want to make you a lot more aware of the different things that you can do to level up your photography game without having to go out and chasing gear all the time. Now, I will ask, if you got something out of this video, please let me know in the comments down below, which lever did you not really ever think about, or which one do you think is the biggest area of improvement for yourself? And if you got value out of this video, please also be sure to leave a like down below and subscribe to the channel if you want to see more content like this. And that's all I have for you right now. So I will see you in the next video.